everyone, and welcome to another episode with One Pittsfield with Mayor Marchetti. In just a few minutes, I'll be joined by Mayor Desai, Principal of Somnath Hospitality. But first, I want to provide a few updates, as I usually do, since our last episode. So I've attended several meetings over the last couple weeks. First was the City Council meeting on September 23rd, at which the City Council received several responses from me on several of their recent petitions. We responded to everything that they put forth. In some cases, I'm not sure that they like the answers, but they got answers. And so it's time for us to move on and start tackling some other issues. I attended my monthly meeting with the Economic Development team, and as we continue to promise you, there is more exciting economic development news coming in the very near future. And the second part of the show, we'll talk about some of the economic development that has happened within the city. I attended the Mass Municipal Association's legislative breakfast that was held in Lee. There were over 50 representatives in attendance from Berkshire, Hampshire, Franklin, and Hampden County. Mayors, town managers, select board members, older people. And so we were there to get an update of where we are. And I think one of the things that we as a city need to keep a really fine eye on is the fiscal year 26 state budget, because there could be some black clouds coming this way in the near future, and so we need to stay abreast of what's happening in Boston. I attended the Commonwealth Office of Refugee and Immigrants and Attorney General's Office meeting as we worked to supporting our members of the immigrant communities and helping them understand what their rights are and are not. And so that was a really heavily attended meeting, and I thought there was some great information that was provided. We held another round of our quarterly business stakeholder meetings in the downtown area. I completed the rounded tour for my monthly radio gigs with Live 95, WBRK, and WTBR. Attended a Mass 250 informational session and learned more about the plans currently underway for the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. And there are events happening from Pittsfield to Boston and everywhere in between. And so there'll be some exciting news happening soon. And we've already seen a couple of those events where we've had General Lafayette join us in Park Square earlier this summer. And so we're continuing to honor the 250th anniversary. I was joined by the Labor Secretary of Workforce Development and Mass Hire for a roundtable discussion, and we had an opportunity to showcase our workforce partnerships with Mass Hire and Berkshire Community College and a lot of our local businesses. And so a lot of good information came out of there. I'm proud to say that we have hired 2 new co-responders. So we are now up to 4 co-responders within the Pittsfield Police Department. We are working to staff a department of 6. And so we're still searching for 2 co-responders. And just a reminder that these positions are being funded out of the city's opioid settlement funds. I attended the School Building Needs Commission meeting as we get closer and closer to being in the feasibility study for our new school project on the Crosby campus. We attended the regular school committee meetings, city council meetings. I was invited to tour Roots Rising Farm and Education Center on Barker Road and got to learn all about the work that they're going to be doing, and they should be up and ready in February to begin operations. The same day, I then traveled to Haydenville for a grant celebration with the Lieutenant Governor and other officials as part of the Massachusetts Vulnerability Preparedness Action Grant Program. And as the Lieutenant Governor said, that's why we call it MVP, because it doesn't roll off your tongue very easily. Pittsfield, in combination with Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, is receiving 2 grants, and one of them is for $1.1 million for reconnecting communities with the West Side, and there's a lot of work that'll be happening over the next couple of years there. Let's talk about some of the community events that we've done. We attended the Let It Shine Morningside Mural Celebration. We celebrated Interprint's 40th anniversary at a special ceremony that they held. We attended the Pittsfield Fire Department annual open house at headquarters on Columbus Avenue. We went to Oktoberfest at Bosque. We'll talk more about this in a minute, but we attended the Holiday Inn Express grand opening where we had the ribbon cutting. Even though they've been open since July, it's always great to kind of have a formal celebration. And then lastly, I attended the Jewish Federation of the Berkshires community gathering in commemoration of the October 7th attack 2 years ago. A couple of acknowledgments, like we like to do every show. Tyler Street Arcade will be opening later this month, and I know a lot of folks have been asking, hey, that arcade is looking like it's been opening for quite some time. It will be opening later this month. Mana Crypt Gaming Center celebrated their 8th anniversary, and they are in the process of moving to 55 West Housatonic Street, which is the former Plains Bike Shop. Dottie's Coffee Lounge is officially reopened under new management, and I'm not going to tell you her name because I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to give you new management. Same Dottie's feel, and check it out. MyCom is celebrating their 70th anniversary. And later this month, we have a new business opening in our downtown, which is called Indie Readery and Records. So stay tuned for that. I believe within the coming weeks, there's a grand opening for them as well. So as we say every show, just a reminder, if your business or organization is celebrating a milestone, or you have some other exciting news that you want to share with us so that we can share with the public, reach out to my office at mayorsoffice@cityofpittsfield.org with the details, and we'll recognize you at the show. City Council meeting on October 14th. There's a few meetings that I want to highlight, and first, we'll be starting the meeting with recognizing the fact that it's Hispanic Heritage Month and recognizing 4 Taconic students with Hispanic Excellence Awards. We have the reappointment of Michael McCarthy and Kamar Talaferro to the Affordable Housing Trust Board, the appointment of Casey Young to the Commission on Tourism, the appointment of Alexia Asinia as an associate member to the Community Development Board. There's appointment of 5 new firefighters within the Pittsfield Fire Department: Scott Madison, Brock Healy, Nolan Jankowski, Miles Candelet, Justin Knackwall, Brent Jelinski, and Carolina Jones. So we'll be welcoming them on board. I met a couple of them at the open house, and they have begun work, and so we'll officially welcome them on Tuesday night. A couple grants and orders that we put forth: $293,940 grant from the Mass Executive Office of Public Safety and Security for the fiscal year 2026 911 Department Support and Incentive Grant. A grant for $16,906.57 from the Mass Executive Office of Public Safety and Security for a State 911 Department Training Grant. We have an order to declare 2 city-owned properties as surplus properties. One is on Daytona Ave and one is on Orlando Ave. And the last order from us is an order to transfer and appropriate $36,000 from within lines of the city solicitor's budget. As some may have picked up from city council meetings, our city solicitor, Devin Grierson, has taken another position in another community. And so we will be welcoming back Attorney Pagnotta under contract with Donovan, Dodig, and O'Connor that will serve us to the end of the year. We are currently doing a search both for an individual and a firm to see which one is more cost effective and will serve the city best. So now that we've given you all those updates, let's turn to the conversation with Mayor here, who recently opened the hotel in July, the Holiday Inn Express, which we're recording from his meeting room today. And come on down. He's offering everyone coffee and free breakfast. At least he's offering us that. Mayor, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for everything that you've done. I know you. I think many people in the community know you, but it's a false assumption to think that everyone does. So why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself? And I heard it the other day at the ribbon cutting, but this hasn't been something that you just decided to do yesterday, right? This is something that your family and you have been involved in for a period of time. So give the viewers a little bit of who is Mayor Desai, as I want to say Mayor so that they don't say that you're the mayor too.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mayor Marchetti, for having me. Thanks for letting us host this event. And as you mentioned, we're here at the new Holiday Inn Express in Pittsfield. This is one of our boardrooms set up for our meeting, which I think actually worked out really nice. But so a brief history about this property is my parents actually first came to Berkshire County at this property in 1982 at the Golden Key Motel, which was in this exact location. My parents owned then operated the Golden Key Motel up until 1998. My brother and I actually were both born at this location and went to public schools from half of our schooling cycle from this location. So we were the last school bus literally in Pittsfield that would come to the town line It would turn around at the old Dakota parking lot. We would walk down the hill. We'd pick up the bus. Funny, I read and I hear you speaking about Crosby. Crosby was the elementary school that my brother and I attended first through 5th grade. And so my roots are really deep and deeper with this property. So my dad, coming directly from India, had bought this property with his brother, which was, and my grandparents at the Golden Key Motel. So we were raised here. Hospitality is essentially in my blood, mainly really developed post college in terms of the professionalism, but in terms of hospitality, it all started here. So my father built the Comfort Inn in 1998, and then in 2014, father had built it very conservatively. It was a 3-story, 59-room inn, but it lacked all the amenities that we really needed to compete. It didn't have really any public space. It didn't really have opportunity to grow. As we would expand in the rooms, we'd lose keys, rooms for the hotel. And the market was developing, as you know. There's a lot of new properties that have come more towards Lenox. And so we decided in 2014, a lot has happened in between, which we'll leave out for time. But, my father-in-law, my father, and myself, both the families decided, let's redevelop this property. And that's what happened. We started in 2014. We put our energy towards another project with the intention to develop this. COVID hit. We thought that would be, probably not the best time to open a hospitality project that was focused on tourism when no one was traveling. So the project paused. We were ready to go. As you and I met, I think at the time, you were still on the city council, and the city had helped us with a tax break. And we can talk more about that. But that tax break essentially is really the main reason that this building is now up. But in terms of, the roots, it really, for my family, and we have other projects since then, but this is where it all began.
So you talked about the TIF, and so one of my questions was going to be talking about, and you beat me to the punch about 2014. So this project has been in the making for a decade.
Correct.
And we kind of were joking about it at the ribbon cutting, but your meeting for a TIF was during COVID. It was on Zoom. I was chairperson of the finance committee, and I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden my computer just went poof, and I knew the meeting was still happening, but nobody could hear me. I could see everybody. The wonders of doing Zoom and meetings, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening, and I look back at that moment all the time and go, was that a good omen or a bad omen to the Holiday Inn Express? And there were two organizations at that finance committee meeting. One project is completed, and one project never saw the light of day. So I guess the bad omen went to
Sure.
the other applicant that night on the agenda. So let's talk about the cost and the changing
Sure.
of the cost, because I think when we first learned as a city that you were doing this project, the cost was millions of dollars less.
Correct.
Than what it is today. So, talk to us about the process, and then I want to go back to the phrase that you said that the city's giving you a tax break, and I know all the folks at home are going, what do you mean they're giving them a tax break? Let's go back and talk about how that tax break impacted you, and then I can add the pieces of, although we gave up some tax revenue, if you hadn't done the project, there's millions of dollars of tax revenue that we wouldn't have got.
Yeah, and I think when we had this discussion, as mentioned, I'm born and raised in Pittsfield. We're developers who are going to be rooted here. We have no intention to sell or to develop the property, take advantage of the resources, and then exit. We're long-term players. I would hope that this property will pass on in my family as it has to me. But when we applied for this, and I think we can all see it now in housing prices and what's happening with construction, but COVID, and I hate to even discuss it. It's something I think we all want to forget, but unfortunately it has changed a lot of things, and we're still you're seeing that in the material prices, construction prices, real estate prices. But when we developed this project, COVID was going on. and I think labor became scarce and materials became scarce. And in that time period, all of the pricing has, we faced a pretty uphill battle as we were getting numbers. So we had a number pre-COVID, we had reassessed the property again prior to COVID, and we were pretty comfortable with where it would pan out based on, occupancy and our statistics from, who comes into town, what we can do to pay, our staff and all of our debts and to make the project work. And once COVID was really completed and construction began again and projects started again, pricing went up. And we faced immediately what looked like a pretty burdensome number. It was $3 million in hard construction costs. And then it's only gone up from there. I thought I'd be pretty clever to wait a year and allow numbers to come back, which I think a lot of people thought. And a year later, they were still there. And so we decided finally in 2023 when we met, and then we broke ground officially in 2024, now is the time to go. We couldn't continue to pause. And I think that's still the case. I'm obviously plugged in with the local community, other developers, business owners. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. This is the new norm. And, the TIF that we had given gave us room to be able to go to the banks and go and say, hey, look, the construction costs have increased X amount, but this TIF will allow us to get traction to make the business work, to essentially give it the running room that it needs to stabilize versus, there's projects that we've seen that unfortunately they fall behind on the property tax, and then before you know it, they're changing hands. Our intention to go into this being that, we've been doing this essentially for me, in essence, my whole life. I knew that we needed this to make this project work, and we didn't want to build this box to see it fail or to see, something develop and ultimately trade hands and then lose, local ownership.
Right. And so when you say the TIF, right, I think this is a perfect example to kind of explain to the folks at home what a TIF is. Right?
Sure.
This property existed. There was, as you said, the Comfort Inn.
Correct.
Your family was paying real estate property taxes.
Correct.
On that property. But that property value, I'm going to make up numbers, was worth $3 million.
Sure.
You put up a $15 million hotel. Yeah. You can correct me if I'm, if you want to put the real numbers out there.
It's painful, yeah. It's pretty close, yeah.
I'm just putting it out there. So now, past the term of the TIF, yeah, you'll be paying property taxes on a value that's substantially higher.
Correct.
Than it was before. So the city will get additional revenues that they wouldn't have had if you didn't do the expansion. And then how many rooms are in this hotel?
So we're at 81 rooms.
And how many was at the old
56.
hotel? So close to 30 more rooms of hotel motel tax that the city will reap from this project. So there's a lot of benefits in a project like this. And in the initial startup, there's not really revenue coming in.
Correct.
Right? As you're building, there's no revenue, but we're holding our hand out and saying, hey, you got to pay us. Yeah. And so the first 5 years, basically, of the TIF helps with like a 10% reduction each year of saying, okay, so the very first year, any of the new construction that changed your property value from 3 to 15, you don't have to pay taxes on that for the first year. And then the next year, you'll pay 10% of that. And the year after, you'll pay 20% of that. So it works its way through. So like day one, you're opened, you're paying employees, but how many guests do you have staying at the hotel?
Correct.
Right? You're not really bringing in revenue. You've got to make it clear that you're open. And I think it's important for folks to understand that one of the things, if I remember correctly, you couldn't start selling rooms.
Correct.
Until you were open.
Correct.
So you couldn't have been saying in January, hey, book a room in the Berkshires. We'll be open 4th of July weekend. Come here. You had to wait till July 1st when you opened the doors to say, hey, we're here. And how many people have already made plans for 4th
Correct.
of July? So you're behind the 8 ball. You're open. You're paying staff. The lights are on. And there's not a revenue coming in. And so I think this explains a TIF the best that I can probably explain one to folks. And so over the 10 years of the TIF, the Holiday Inn Express or Somnath Hospitality will be paying considerably amount more in taxes than they would have if it was still the Comfort Inn. And that's how the city benefits the rewards. And so hopefully I explained that well enough for the folks at home, that because you say tax break and they hear tax break and they go, where's my tax break?
Well, I think
it's a phase in. And that, I'm glad you said it like that, because that is what folks think. And I think it's important to kind of explain what that is.
And I think on the flip side, the other piece that gets that doesn't get the light is we're still paying room occupancy tax. So it's not that there's a no tax consequence. So we're still paying into the city and state for every guest that's here outside of just the property tax. But the big advantage here, and I think I hear this a lot in the misconception is we're local, and we were paying, this property sat as dirt from 2014 until we started until where we are now today. And so unfortunately the neighboring towns, which have seen the hospitality market grow a little more, their property tax essentially is lower. So the developers are going in that direction. So for us to develop this property and to really, as you mentioned, and we call it in the hotel world, a ramp up, we need to ramp up. So again, you're right, we're open, we don't have guests in the door. That takes time for the consumer to know that we exist, whether that's local or outside town. The brands will do their portion, we'll do our portion, but that ramp up, we need that to be able to pay our employees, our bills, our utilities, and this TIF really helps support that. It allows us to ramp up enough to stabilize to the point when we are paying what our full value is, we are now stabilized.
And along with that, we required you to hire a certain number of employees.
Correct.
And we provided you with the time to do that. And there was a variety of positions that you needed to fill. And I'm assuming you're open, so we've already started checking those boxes of hiring some of those folks.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I want to do a couple things because we probably have about 5 minutes left. But I want you to be able to tell folks, sure, this is a hotel, but there are amenities within this hotel that folks from Pittsfield could use in terms of meeting space and a variety of things. So I want you to be able to share that. And then let's just transition into what trends are you seeing in the hospitality industry, and what are you hearing from folks about what they want, why they're coming to Pittsfield, and what they're looking to do?
Sure. I'll try to go fast. So from a hospitality standpoint and the hotel itself, we, my wife and I are both in the hospitality business, and we're both Berkshire natives. And we know, and we've also developed, I think, most of the comp set that we're competing against. So what we chose to do here is we've developed this hotel with a plan to try to give back a little bit in the off season. So you'll see more about it online. We're really actively marketing it. We're working with local businesses, such as last week you mentioned the Oktoberfest or Oktoberfest, but we were there and we helped sponsor that event with Bosque. We're really looking forward to, we're really excited about what they've done. Being a Pittsfield native, I see something like that. I think it's huge for Pittsfield. You see Bosque Sport. I think that's huge for Pittsfield. You look at a lot of the new developments, and as your mug, or as you know from the banking world, there's a new bank in Pittsfield. So there's a lot of positivity. And when we developed this hotel, the additional cost that we took on was to develop a basement in this hotel, which is facing Route 7. And what we did there was we built a pool double the size of what the brand would require. By moving that pool down there, we were able to have about a 1,500 square feet conference space. And this is like a smaller boardroom that we're in at the hotel. So, and what we've done here is we've tried to develop this hotel with something we can give back to the city in the off season as well. So, we're in summer, everybody's busy in the summer. But you look at Pittsfield, and I'm born and raised. I have 4 kids, and I'm raising them here. And you hear sometime, oh well, what is there to do? So our goal with this hotel is in the winter season to provide like a staycation. We have an indoor pool, a spa, a large conference room. We're going to be doing movie nights, which is geared towards our residents of Pittsfield. We have these 2 spaces that are available for birthday parties. So outside of the norm, we're hoping to get really plugged in to our local partners and give back to the city. In terms of a place where you can come, maybe, get away or feel like you're getting away just for the weekend without having to drive, all the way to Boston. In terms of trends and what I'm seeing, who's our traveler, it's been really good for Pittsfield. We've seen a lot of millennium, millennial travelers, people who are bringing their families here. So what they'll do is they'll do exactly what I said. They're going to take a staycation from Boston, Norwood, Easton. I mean, we see that. What brings you into town? Our front desk is trained very well to ask that. And they said, we just wanted to get away. We heard about the Berkshires. And so for us, we're excited to say you're in Pittsfield, not Lenox, right? Not to say anything bad about Lenox, but Pittsfield's, who we're doing this for. So we're bringing tax revenue to Pittsfield. We're making Pittsfield exposed. You now have a quick ski mountain too. You have Bosque, within 2 minutes from us. So I think, when those guests are here, they're going to the Beacon, they're going to Berkshire Museum. They're now bringing that money and that tourism and that exposure back to Pittsfield, and that's really our goal. And you and I have worked together for a long time and closely, and I'd say thank you for putting me on the tourism board. I think that's been really good. We're coming up with some really good ideas, which are, not to again bring up COVID, but I think COVID disrupted the natural order of things.
It changed, right?
Correct.
Where do we go? And one of our challenges, and I'm glad that we talked about Tourism Commission and there's some new blood there, is that there's a lot to do in Pittsfield between Bosque, soon the new renovated Berkshire Museum, 2 beautiful lakes, lots of trails, state forest, on, and we just don't do well of letting folks know that we're here and come to Pittsfield. And so, as I probably told you in the beginning of the show, this goes by quick.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
And thanks for choosing to build in Pittsfield and not just across the line in Lenox. I think it's important, and wish you great success. And I know if you need something, you know where I am to call. So
and the same
thanks
goes
so
to
much.
us. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in for another episode of One Pittsfield with Mayor Marchetti. We'll see you in a couple weeks.